Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Maybe try getting a real job like normal people, my dad's new wife said casually, swirling the last bit of orange juice in her champagne glass, as if she were delivering helpful advice rather than a public jab. Stop this consulting nonsense. It's not a career. It's avoidance. She said it loud enough for the entire table to hear. My father shifting in discomfort, the waiter suddenly pretending to wipe the next table just a little too slowly. She wanted a reaction, an audience, a moment of superiority. I could have defended myself. I could have listed every contract I've closed, every boardroom I've advised, every company that flew me across the ocean just for strategy meetings. I could have told her I made more in one quarter than she made all year, but validation is expensive when you pay for it with dignity, so I didn't take the bait. I simply adjusted my blazer sleeve and smiled. That's an interesting perspective, I said softly. Her smirk widened, confident she'd won whatever imaginary duel she thought we were having. She leaned back in her chair, satisfied. Some people mistake silence for weakness, when in truth, silence is usually the choice of the powerful. The rest of brunch passed in shallow conversation, weather, neighborhood gossip, vacation plans. She spoke the most, interrupting everyone with stories no one asked for. My father laughed too hard at her jokes, eager to keep the peace. I watched quietly, not with resentment, but with clarity. People who try to shrink you are almost always scared of what you'll become if you expand. When the bill arrived, she snatched it dramatically and said, "Let me get this. I mean, someone has to pay, until consulting starts paying, right?" She laughed at her own joke. I thanked her graciously. I drove home in silence, not angry, not wounded, just reminded. Some people don't recognize greatness until it wears a title they respect, and mine was coming sooner than she expected. Monday morning arrived quietly, with the kind of early sunlight that slips through the curtains like a whisper rather than a shout. I made my coffee slowly, savoring the stillness before the day turned loud. While the world was just waking up, I was already stepping into purpose. The email reminder blinked across my screen right on time. AM, executive briefing, downtown branch, restructuring announcement. Most people panic when they're promoted into power. I didn't. I had been preparing for this my entire life, through every dismissal, every underestimation, every brunch conversation where people assumed I was still figuring things out. My driver pulled up to the corporate building, and as I stepped out, the security guard at the entrance straightened and greeted me by name. Small acknowledgement, big shift. Titles don't change you. They reveal who already knew who they were. Inside, the lobby buzzed like a shaken hive. Employees whispered in corners, exchanging rumors about the restructuring. Some looked worried, others hopeful, most curious. Change has a way of exposing people's true loyalties. I took the executive elevator alone. No one else had access. When the doors opened onto the top floor, the regional manager was already waiting. Nervous energy radiated off him like static. He offered a quick handshake, slightly too firm, like he was trying to prove something. I didn't flinch. "They're already gathering in the conference room," he said. One of them arrived a bit flustered. Seems she didn't expect to be called in this morning. I didn't need to ask who. We walked down the long hallway together. I could hear the muffled voices on the other side of the glass doors. I paused before entering, watching them through the frosted divider. Familiar posture. Familiar hairstyle. She was there. Flipping through paperwork with false composure, foot tapping beneath the table. She had no idea. I nodded once to the manager. He stepped forward to announce me. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice echoing across the room. "Thank you for joining on short notice. Corporate has completed the restructuring process. And I'd like to introduce you to the new Chief Executive Officer." I waited. 3 seconds of silence. Then I walked in. Calm, unshaken, unrushed. She looked up, and her world paused. Her eyes met mine. And for a moment, she didn't seem to recognize me. It was as if her brain refused to process what it was seeing. As if pairing the woman she had mocked over brunch with the one now standing at the head of a corporate table was too great a jump for her ego to allow. Then it hit her. Her spine straightened. Her lips parted slightly. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles paling as if the furniture itself was the only thing tethering her to reality. I walked to my seat, not the visitor's chair, but the one at the head of the table, and set my leather portfolio down with quiet precision. I could feel the room observing every movement, silently recalibrating their perception of me. The regional manager looked relieved to hand over control. He pulled out the chair beside me, but I remained standing for a moment longer, allowing the weight of presence to settle. "Good morning," I said evenly. "Thank you for being here." My voice was calm. No bite, no theatrics, just steady authority. I could sense her shifting uncomfortably, pretending to adjust her blazer while avoiding direct eye contact. She didn't know whether to acknowledge me or to shrink. Pride wrestled with panic inside her. She finally mustered a brittle laugh. "Well, this is unexpected." I turned to her gently, not unkindly. "Is it?" Silence followed. Not hostile, not heavy, just revealing. I began reviewing the notes in front of me, as if she were merely another attendee. Because that's what she was now. No more, no less. Her earlier confidence at brunch had been loud, flamboyant, theatrical. But real power does not need to announce itself. It simply arrives and changes the air in the room. I didn't gloat. I didn't remind her of her words. I didn't need to. Standing there, I realized something profound. Some people only learn respect when humility finally introduces it to them. And today, humility had arrived, wearing my nameplate. She cleared her throat as if attempting to regain composure, but her voice betrayed her. It wavered slightly, thin around the edges. "Well," she said, forcing a smile, "I suppose we'll all be working closely together then." I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "That depends," I replied lightly. "There will be evaluations before positions are finalized." A flicker, quick but unmistakable, crossed her face. Worry. The kind that crawls up the spine when uncertainty takes root. To her credit, she tried to recover. She straightened a stack of papers that didn't need straightening, adjusted her pen twice, then folded her hands neatly as though hoping that decorum would protect her from reality. I proceeded with the meeting, outlining the restructuring plan with clarity and efficiency. I addressed each department head, asked thoughtful questions, took notes. I treated everyone with equal professionalism, including her, especially her, because sometimes the most gracious thing you can offer someone is neutrality when they expect retribution. But mere politeness can be more disarming than punishment. Every time I redirected the discussion towards strategy or projections, she sat silently, nodding too quickly, agreeing too quickly, trying to read my tone like a lifeline. At one point, she attempted to contribute an idea, voice too fast, words tumbling over each other. I acknowledged it with a courteous nod, neither dismissing nor indulging her. That restraint unsettled her more than any confrontation ever could. She was waiting for a moment, any moment, where I might seek revenge. But I didn't. I wasn't here to humble her. I was here to lead. And slowly she began to understand that the most powerful people are not those who conquer loudly, but those who elevate quietly. By the end of the meeting, the energy in the room had shifted. Conversations that once flowed past me now flowed through me. Questions were directed to me first. Decisions waited for my nod. Respect, the kind that cannot be demanded or borrowed, had settled in naturally. She stayed seated as others gathered their folders and exited, hesitating, debating, then finally standing. She approached the table, cautiously, like one approaching a flame, not sure whether it will warm or burn. Her voice was soft, smaller than I had ever heard it. "May I speak with you privately?" she asked. I looked up, pen still in hand. "Of course," I said calmly. Then I waited, giving her the same silence she once tried to fill with judgment. Only now, it was hers to navigate. For a moment, she stood there without speaking, hands clasped together as if searching for the right combination of words that might unlock redemption. Her confidence, once loud and unbothered, had softened into something more human. "Something unsure. I didn't know," she finally whispered. I looked at her steadily. "You didn't ask." The simplicity of the response seemed to land deeper than any rebuke could. She swallowed, glancing away briefly before forcing herself to meet my gaze again. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way the other day." She paused, then added with effort, "It was unkind and unfair." There was sincerity in her voice, not perfect but honest. Growth rarely begins gracefully. I let the silence breathe between us before responding. People often speak from the limits of their own experience, I said calmly. She nodded, unsure if it was forgiveness or philosophy. I made assumptions, she admitted, voice trembling. Wrong ones. I closed my notebook gently. That's the thing about assumptions, I replied. They're cheap to make, but expensive to correct. She exhaled, not defensively this time, but in acknowledgement. The kind of exhale that comes when pride loosens its grip. If there's an opportunity to continue here, she said slowly, choosing each word with care, I want to earn it properly. Her posture was no longer that of a woman protecting her image. It was someone finally willing to stand without armor. I regarded her for a long moment. Not as a rival, not as my father's wife, but as another person caught somewhere between who they were and who they were trying to be. Respect is not given because someone demands it. It's given when someone learns how to stand in humility without collapsing. I nodded once, a quiet acknowledgement, not a promise. Let's see who you decide to be from here, I said gently. She blinked, emotion flickering in her eyes. Gratitude, relief, perhaps something even deeper. She gave a small, genuine nod before stepping back. As she turned to leave, she paused at the doorway, glancing back as if seeing me for the first time. Not as competition, not as a threat, but as a woman who chose character over retaliation, and that, in the end, was what truly disarmed her. She walked out quietly, and I remained in the empty conference room for a moment longer, resting my hands on the polished table. Not in triumph, but in clarity. I hadn't needed to raise my voice, remind her of her insult, or demand recognition. The world had done the revealing for me. That's the thing about staying true to your path. You don't have to convince anyone to respect it. You just have to keep walking it until it leads you somewhere undeniable. Some people spend their lives trying to prove others wrong. I've learned there's something far better. Prove yourself right, not for validation, not for applause, but because the woman you become in the process is far more powerful than any opinion spoken about you. So if anyone ever tells you to get a real job, be realistic, or stay in your lane, don't waste time defending your dream to people who don't have the vision to see it. Let them doubt, let them watch, and when you finally arrive at the head of the table, sit down with grace and let your presence answer every question they ever had.